All right, so since it's raining outside and I can't fly, I wanted to go ahead and record a video talking about all the gear that I use for Apex, my videography and photography company. This is going to be my 2022 gear list, and I haven't made one of these in over a year's time. And honestly, a lot has changed and it requires some explanation. Let's get started. What's going on, everybody? Ken here, you're watching OriginaldoBo, and we're gonna talk about all the gear that I use for my business in 2022. I've made some drastic changes, and actually I've sort of regressed a little bit, and it took me almost a year to admit that I made a mistake switching from Sony to Fuji when it comes to photography and videography. We'll touch more on that in a little bit. But I guess we'll start off this video by talking about the camera that I use for real estate photography. All right, so the camera that I'm using for real estate photography is the Sony a7 III. If this sounds familiar, it's because I've already owned the a7 III. I was walking through Best Buy one day and I saw a ridiculous open box deal on this, the a7 III. It was $1,200 plus tax. I couldn't pass it up, so I ended up buying it. Now, when I first bought it, I was still using my Fuji X-T3 for photos, but tried out the a7 III again, and I immediately fell in love with the overall simplicity and how well this does in low light situations. So right there was sort of my pivot point that I was going to end up switching back to Sony 100% of the time, and the a7 III sort of sealed that deal. And plus two, getting this for $1,200, I mean, that was an absolute steal. This was at one time a $2,400 camera. So one of the big reasons why I love the a7 III so much for real estate photography is one, it has good autofocus, and two, it's amazing in low light. You don't always get the best situations when it comes to houses, so having a camera that you can really raise that ISO value up and still get a clean, workable image is really important. Now, I shoot at compressed RAW, so it's not the biggest or the most large a file, and I still find that there's enough of information to be able to edit and compress back down into a beautiful image for my clients. Now at 24 megapixels, once you resize that image, you still have a nice amount of detail. I feel like 24 megapixels is really the most I need when it comes to real estate photography. Now, if I was doing something for a designer or maybe an architect that was going to be in a print magazine or something, maybe I would want to consider higher megapixels like the a7R4 or even the A1, maybe even the a7 IV, which I'm filming on right now. But I think for the vast majority of my clients, the a7 III is more than enough and way sharp enough for basically any of their needs. All right, let's talk about the lens that I'm pairing with the a7 III because the lens is going to attribute to some of that sharpness. So when it comes to lenses, I went through a handful of Sony lenses before I landed on this. This is the 12 to 24 millimeter f4. And you may be thinking to yourself, at 12 millimeters, that's just way too wide for real estate. And you're right, it is. But most of the time I am photographing at about 16 to 18 millimeters on most of my houses, and sometimes even 20 millimeters. With that being said, there are instances where I do need 14 or I do need 15 or even that 12 millimeters. And it typically comes in line when I'm photographing in the city, when I'm really backed up against a corner and I don't have a lot of room and I need to get, the entire home or even apartment complex in the shot. And that's where that 12 to 14 sort of range comes into play. Not only that, this lens is rectilinear, which means that all my verticals are not bowed, they are completely straight. And the lens corner to corner sharpness is really, really good. Once you pass that 16 millimeter mark, I feel like it is a super, super sharp lens. I do all of my photographs at f8, and I feel like that is perfect. That's one of the reasons why I did not opt to go to the f2.8 version of this lens. One, this is a lot smaller and much more manageable, and it's actually pretty lightweight, all things considered. But if you're looking for a fantastic lens, you can find these renewed on Amazon for right at about $1,400. It's an absolute steal, and you can get honestly similar results even though this is not a G Master lens. So 12 to 24 covers the perfect amount of range that I need when I am photographing a home. All right, let's talk about the tripod I'm using because this is one thing that has sort of stayed consistent throughout all of my videos. This is the BREW Mach 3 tripod. Now this version is the carbon fiber version, but previously I was using the aluminum version of this tripod. And I thought that The carbon fiber would be a lot lighter than the aluminum version, but honestly, they are not very far off in weight. The weight is really, really similar. Now, I like to use the legs that sort of have this little turn screw here. I feel like this is super fast for setting it up and being able to capture photos in a hurry. I've been using this carbon fiber tripod for roughly about 9 months, and it's held up really, really well. This geared head has been on both my Mach 3 aluminum and now the carbon fiber tripod. And I've had this gear head for, I wanna say about 3.5 years. And if you've never used a gear head tripod, you are missing out. It is absolutely a clutch utility when it comes to real estate photography. It makes life so easy to line up shots quickly and especially accurately. So geared head, BREW, it's been an absolute beast. I've had 0 issues with it. I know that a lot of people prefer the, there's an Arca Swiss one out there. It's like 1,100 bucks, but I just think it's crazy expensive for what it is. Honestly, I need something durable that I can throw around, put it in the back of my truck, and for the $185 that this gear head cost, I feel like it's more than adequate for my needs as a photographer. But yeah, I've been using BREW tripods for a long time, really, really happy, and I have 0 intention on switching away from their product line just because it works so freaking well. One more consistent that I've had throughout the duration of my photography is the fact that I have been using the 8200 Pro. This flash has been just a little workhorse. It's been really, really great. The battery lasts quite a while, and it's more than enough that I need for most of the properties that I am photographing. Anytime I need a little bit more light, I will bring my 8400 Pro with me, but it's very, very far and few between that I find myself needing more than just this. This allows me to do most of my flash composites. I'm using the bare bulb with a diffuser on top, and I just sort of tape this so it doesn't fall off. Batteries have been really the only thing that I've struggled with the 8200 Pro throughout the duration I've had this. Some of the batteries that I found on Amazon don't fit inside of here very well, and because of that, they lose contact and connectivity. So you gotta be really careful with the batteries that you do buy as far as replacements. I am using the WBD29 batteries. There's one other brand of battery from Godox that I found does not work well. It's not the 29, it has like a letter at the end of it. So be careful with those batteries, they don't work really that great. I do have a case on this, and I do have a sort of pistol grip, and that's really all I do. I just sort of carry this with me throughout the house. I used to have a little ball head and keep it on my hip. But since using this, I've really not needed any other flashes. So 8200 Pro, it's an absolute workhorse, a beast, a lot of light. The only time I ever found myself needing more lighting is when I'm dealing with houses with a lot of wood and I really need a huge blast of light. And in those instances, I will bring the 8400 Pro with me. But I don't think for somebody who's just starting out, they need to do that. I think just get yourself the 8200 or the 8200 Pro, and you'll be more than happy with this for a very, very long time. Okay, let's talk about the video camera that I'm using. Now, when I do my work, I like to use 2 different cameras. I have a camera for photography and a camera for my video work. Now, my video camera of choice is the Sony FX3. Now, I am going to firmly blame Jason Morris for this purchase. Watching his videos just made me want to purchase the FX3, and I finally bought it a couple of months back. I think I've had this camera now for about 5 months, and since filming with the FX3, I've just found that my videos just look so much better. I switched away from Panasonic and Fuji because they were still struggling in low light situations, and my Panasonic would tend to get some weird magenta color cast that I could just never get rid of. But with the FX3, it's perfect. I can film at ISO 12,800 on houses and not have to worry about any noise. And to me, that is honestly amazing. And this camera with the latest update has been an absolute beast. It never overheats in Florida. It allows me to film at 4K 60 full frame, and I can even film at 4K 120 full frame if I so chose. It's crazy. I'm using CFast cards and I film at all I. The one gripe I have with this is the fact that the CFast cards from Sony are a little bit limiting, and the size of the CFast cards are just deplorable. 80 gigs for the base CFast card and you're charging $185? What the hell is wrong with you, Sony? What I have found is the roll-in shutter has been much improved on the FX3. I really don't notice any roll-in shutter whatsoever with the FX3. And the fact that I can film vertical for clients when they ask for Instagram Reels is nice because it does have a 1/4 screw, so I just mount it just like this on my gimbal, and I can film for them when they ask for those types of reels. So definitely a lot to be said about this camera, and I think it just does absolutely amazing. Like I said, I really don't have anything but good things to say about this. The latest update makes it very usable. All the little buttons on here make it very, very versatile in tough situations. My only gripe is that I don't have shutter angle. I would love to see a true shutter angle being added to this. That would really sort of bring it into more of a cinema camera. But for the most of all my videos, I film at S-Log, S-Cinetone, and then I just use the Phantom LUTs, and I feel like I get a good image out of it. Right now, I am grading this video with the Phantom LUTs. This is the RE neutral for the A7S III, FX3, and A7 IV, and I think that everything looks fantastic when it's graded. All right, let's talk about the lenses that I pair when I am filming video, because it's very different than when I do photos. All right, so for video, my main lens that I've been using and gravitating towards predominantly is the G Master 14mm f1.8. Now, even though that this is a 1.8 lens, I am never really filming at f1.8. Most of the time when I'm filming, I'm either at f4 or f5.6. Again, keep in mind with this camera, I can really bump up that ISO, run higher ISOs so I can really stop down a little bit further, creating even a sharper image. When I am in a tough situation, I mean a super tough situation, I will go down as low as f2, sometimes f1.8 if I really, really need to. You may be saying to yourself, 14mm is crazy wide for real estate. And you're right, it is crazy wide. But one nice thing is that it doesn't distort the image. It also gives an appearance of a larger house. And because I'm filming in 4K, but exporting to my clients in 1080p, I'm able to crop in a little bit further on that image, which will just sort of mitigate some of that wideness. And again, I think it looks perfectly fine. Another nice thing I love about this lens, it does have a manual autofocus switch, so I can quickly put this into manual mode and then focus my shot. I try not to use any sort of autofocus for any of my wide shots. I set my focus to infinity and just let it roll. So at f5, f4, you're gonna have everything in focus. And yeah, really, really love this lens for wide shots. All right, let's talk about detail shots. And unfortunately, I'm filming on the lens that I do the vast majority of my detail shots on. So I use the Tamron 28 to 75mm for most of my detail shots. It's a super sharp lens. It's also relatively affordable. It's just under $800. It's an f2.8 lens. And like I said, I film all of my talking headshots on that lens at 50mm. So right now we're at 50mm, f2.8, and I think everything looks fantastic. All of my shots are always filmed, like my tight, super tight macro shots are typically always filmed with that lens. I also added another lens to the lineup, which is a 70mm to 180, and this allows me to be even further away from my subject and also keep that background separation. If you don't have a lens like this, like a 70 to 180, I would highly recommend getting one because it really adds sort of a whole new dynamic to your videos, and it will separate your videos from somebody who is more of an amateur where it's just going to be wide angle shots, which I've made that mistake. I've done videos where there's no detail shots, there's no real dynamic between two different lenses. If you're not switching lenses, you really should be, because man, it will make your videos stand out from everyone else's. So definitely run 2 lenses at the very least. I run 3 lenses. One of them I'm filming on right now. All right, I've already done a video on this, but I'll talk about it again just so we know. I am using the Ronin 3, the RS3 Pro for all of my stabilized shots. I will just tell you, I am completely enamored with this gimbal. It has been an absolute workhorse, a super beast, and it is probably the most stable gimbal I have ever had the pleasure of using. I can shoot with 70mm and never really notice any sort of wobble. I use that 28 to 75 like pretty frequently, and honestly, all of the shots come out looking really, really smooth. So been really happy with this. I've also not had to do much tweaking to this gimbal. I just leave it on its slowest settings, and I feel like it works fine. And I love the fact that they also included this handle. I went ahead and put my Ninja Atomos on here, and I have also a V-mount battery that just, the only purpose of this V-mount battery is to power the Atomos, which this V-mount battery has lasted me like, I think I'm on my 3rd or 4th house this week, and it works amazing. So RS3 Pro, I'm not gonna talk about it a lot. I've already done a video on this recently. If you're interested in that video, check out that card up here or here, somewhere up there, if you want to get more details on the RS3 Pro. But yeah, I've just been loving this gimbal, and it works really well. All right, and lastly, these are probably the smallest things I wanted to talk about. With my storage, I use Sony Tough cards, and I'm using the Sony CFast card for all of my video. I want to have the fastest read and write speeds for my video, so I opt to use the Sony Tough cards. I have a love-hate relationship with this CFast Type A. I mean, I wish there was a 500 gig card that didn't cost an arm and a leg, but it seems like even the third-party manufacturers are charging similar, if not more, than what Sony is charging for their Tough cards. So one thing I would love to see happen this year is there to be some Type A cards that don't break the bank. That really sucks. But when I'm not using Tough cards, I am using the Sony Tough Card G Series for my photography. These cards are just, listen to this. They're tough, and I don't have to worry about these breaking. I mean, I've dropped other SD cards and I've broken the little lock off it where I couldn't modify any of the contents on the storage. So one of the nice things I love about the Sony Tough cards is I never have to worry about these breaking. They just always work. And yeah, they're a little bit more pricey, but you know, it just beats dropping one of these accidentally, breaking it, and then losing your client files. So those are the Tough cards that I use. Now, when it comes to the drone related work, I have been using the Mavic 3. Now, before I had the Mavic 3, I had the Mavic 3 Cine, but once again, I really didn't find a huge benefit in using the ProRes files. So I just use H.265 D-Log and 10-bit, and that's been perfect for all of my shoots. Now, the Mavic 3 has been absolutely phenomenal and has really upped my overall game. And one thing that's really nice about the Mavic 3, if I'll grab it here, is that it matches up really well to the FX3 colors. I can really blend these two together, and you wouldn't really be able to tell where the two different color sciences met and end. So that's really something that has helped me out tremendously over this year. I'm also using the RC Pro. I've had no problems with the RC Pro. So RC Pro, Mavic 3, it's just an awesome combination. One thing that I wish that the RC Pro had better battery life. I sometimes forget to charge this and I'll be down at like 20% trying to squeak out a shoot. And it gets a little unnerving sometimes, but honestly, been very content with both the RC Pro and Mavic 3. For photos look awesome. Sometimes I'll even just use the Mavic 3 for the exterior photos, especially if a house is a 2-story house. I won't even break out the A7 III, and I bet you nobody could tell a difference at all. So Mavic 3 just sort of rounds out my entire kit, and I think it works excellent. All right, so that's my complete kit for 2022. This is the first time I'm pretty satisfied, and I don't really feel like I have gas here. Like, I don't feel like I need to acquire more gear. I think I can pretty much be settled right here because right now I have the best of the best as far as that makes my job easier. And the results that I'm getting from all this gear has been absolutely phenomenal. If an Inspire 3 or something came out tomorrow, I don't think I would buy it. Not when I'm doing real estate. I don't think I need that type of overkill. And I've had a lot of cameras throughout this year to really compare to quality. And honestly, Sony, for me, being a solo film creator, works out the best for having autofocus for obviously shots like this. And then 2, in low light situations when you're filming houses, it really makes a big difference with the overall color and tone of things. So that's it. That's my entire gear kit for 2022. If you're interested in any of it or you want to look at it in more detail for yourself, there will be links in the description below where you can check it out. I will see you in the next video. Stay original.